Hey everyone! Welcome to this video tutorial learning C# using Windows Forms. In this tutorial, we'll be covering the basics of C# and how to get started with building desktop applications using Windows Forms. C# is now widely used for developing a variety of applications, including desktop applications, web applications, mobile apps, games, and more. It is a popular language among developers due to its ease of use, strong typing, garbage collection, and other features that make it a powerful tool for software development. Windows Forms, on the other hand, is a GUI framework provided by Microsoft for building desktop applications on the Windows operating system. It provides a set of pre-built controls and components that can be used to create windows, buttons, menus, dialogues, and other user interface elements for desktop applications. This tutorial is divided into 9 chapters, in which the necessary basic steps regarding the used IDE, integrated development environment, and the necessary skills are explained. See this as an introduction to development with C# and Visual Studio. On the next sites you will see what you can expect in this and the following videos from this tutorial. So let's not lose any time, and after a little introduction to the world of C#, let's start with the tutorial overview and the first video from this series. Why C#? C# can be used for almost everything no matter in which direction or interests your way goes. Since it is also the main language used for Unity, later entry into game development for almost all platforms is easier. I myself like to use Unity together with C# to develop games and apps for Android. If needed, I will be happy to make videos in this direction later on. Firstly, you can use C# to create desktop applications. This includes everything from simple console applications to complex graphical user interfaces. C# provides extensive libraries and frameworks for developing desktop applications, which makes it easy for developers to create robust and efficient applications. Secondly, you can use C# to create mobile apps. With the rise of smartphones, mobile apps have become an integral part of our lives. C# offers a variety of frameworks and tools for creating mobile apps, such as Xamarin and Unity, which allow you to create cross-platform apps for iOS, Android, and Windows Phone. Thirdly, you can use C# to create games. C# is a popular language for game development, thanks to the Unity game engine. Unity allows you to create games for a variety of platforms, including desktop, mobile, and console. You can use C# to write game logic, create game objects, and implement physics and other game mechanics. Fourthly, you can use C# to create web applications. C# is used in combination with ASP.NET to create web applications that run on the web server. This includes everything from simple websites to complex web applications that require authentication, authorization, and data manipulation. Fifthly, you can use C# for cloud computing. With the rise of cloud computing, C# has become an essential language for developing cloud-based applications. You can use C# to create applications that run on cloud platforms such as Microsoft Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud. And it can be used for C# for database programming. C# provides extensive libraries for working with databases, making it easy to create applications that store, retrieve, and manipulate data. You can use C# to connect to a variety of databases, including SQL Server, MySQL, and Oracle. All parts of this tutorial are: learn C# using Windows Forms, getting started. Learn C# using Windows Forms, basics. Learn C# using Windows Forms, variables. Learn C# using Windows Forms, conditions. Learn C# using Windows Forms, loops. Learn C# using Windows Forms, arrays. Learn C# using Windows Forms, methods. Learn C# using Windows Forms, classes. Learn C# using Windows Forms, final exam. In the last video, final exam, we will create together a complete Windows Forms tool from start to finish. In this we can use many of the new learned knowledge from this tutorial. Now let's start with the first video. Learn C# using Windows Forms, getting started. We will cover the following points. Step 1. Installing Visual Studio. Step 2. Creating a new Windows Forms project. Step 3. Adding controls and customizing their properties. Step 4. Writing code to respond to user events. Step 5. Building and running the application. And now enjoy the practical part of this video. Hey everyone! Welcome to this video tutorial learning C# using Windows Forms. In this tutorial, we'll be covering the basics of C#. On the next pages I give you some more info regarding basic structure of a Windows Forms application. What is the Net Framework and how do you use it? How to use classes from the Net Framework in a Windows Forms application. Basic structure of a Windows Forms application. A Windows Forms application is made up of various components that work together to create the user interface and handle user input. Here are some of the main components. Form. A form is the main window of a Windows Forms application. It provides a surface on which controls can be placed and allows the user to interact with the application. Controls. Controls are the various user interface elements that can be placed on a form, such as buttons, text boxes, labels, and more. Each control has its own set of properties and events that can be used to customize its appearance and behavior. Event handlers. An event handler is a method that gets called when a particular event occurs, such as a button click or a form load. Event handlers are used to handle user input and respond to user actions. The Net Framework is a set of libraries and tools provided by Microsoft for developing applications on the Windows platform. It includes a vast collection of pre-built classes that can be used to simplify common programming tasks and speed up development. Here are some more details about the Net Framework. What is the Net Framework and how do you use it? Class library. The Net Framework includes a massive class library that provides a wide range of functionality, from basic data types to advanced algorithms and data structures. The class library is organized into namespaces, which help to organize the classes and make them easier to find and use. Common Language Runtime, CLR. The CLR is the foundation of the Net Framework and provides services such as memory management, security, and exception handling. It also includes a just-in-time, JIT, compiler that converts the intermediate language code into machine code at runtime. Integrated Development Environment, IDE. Microsoft Visual Studio is the primary IDE for developing Net Framework applications. It provides a wide range of tools and features, including a code editor, debugging tools, and visual designers for building user interfaces. Cross-language support. The Net Framework supports multiple programming languages, including C#, Visual Basic, and F#. This means that you can write code in your language of choice and still use the same class library and runtime environment. How to use classes from the Net Framework in a Windows Forms application. To use the Net Framework in your C# Windows Forms application, you need to include references to the required assemblies. This can be done by adding references to the Net Framework class library in your project settings. Once you have the necessary references, you can use the classes and functionality provided by the Net Framework in your application. Example for the message box class in the System Windows Forms assembly. 1. Add the needed reference to your Windows Forms project. 2. Set the reference to the namespace to your project. 3. Use the classes and functionality provided in your tool. But don't worry. When you create a Windows Forms project, all the necessary references are already included. Now let's start with the video. Learn C# using Windows Forms, Basics. We will cover the following points. Step 1. Example of using the message box class in C#. Step 2. Example of using the stopwatch class in C#. Step 3. Example of using the datetime class in C#. Step 4. Example of using the random class in C#. And now enjoy the practical part of this video. Hey everyone! Welcome to this video tutorial learning C# using Windows Forms. In this tutorial, we'll be covering the basics of C#. On the next pages I give you some more info regarding what are variables, declaring and initializing variables, using variables in Windows Forms. What are variables? Variables are a fundamental concept in programming languages like C#. A variable is simply a name given to a memory location that stores a value. In other words, a variable is a container that holds data. By using different variable types, you can store different kinds of data in your program and perform different operations on them. For example, you might use integer variables to store numeric values, string variables to store text, and Boolean variables to store logical values. Here is a description of the stored values for each variable type in C#. For the beginning, it's okay to know the three most used ones like bool, int and string. Bool. A bool variable can store a Boolean value, which is either true or false. Int. An int variable can store a signed 32-bit integer value between -2,147,483,648 and 2,147,483,647. String. A string variable can store a sequence of Unicode characters, such as hello world. In C#, variables must be declared before they can be used. The syntax for declaring a variable is first data type and then the variable name. Data type refers to the type of data that the variable can hold, such as int for integers, string for text strings, bool for Boolean values, etc. Variable name is the name you give to the variable, which must follow certain naming conventions, such as starting with a letter or underscore and not containing spaces. Declaring and initializing variables. Once a variable is declared, you can assign it a value using the assignment operator, equals. Here, we declare an integer variable x and assign it the value 5. Alternatively, you can declare and initialize a variable in a single line of code, like this. This is a more concise way of declaring and initializing a variable, which can be helpful for keeping your code readable and easy to understand. It's important to note that C# is a strongly typed language, which means that you must declare the data type of a variable before you can use it. This helps to prevent errors and ensures that your code is more robust and reliable. Using variables in Windows Forms. Now that we know how to declare and initialize variables in C#, let's see how we can use them in Windows Forms. One common use case for variables in Windows Forms is to store and manipulate user input. For example, let's say we have a text box control in our form that allows the user to enter their age. We can use a variable to store the value of this text box as follows. Here, we are declaring an integer variable called age and initializing it with the value of the text age text box control after converting it to an integer using the parse method. We can then use this variable to perform calculations or display the value and other controls on the form. Now let's start with the video. Learn C# using Windows Forms, variables. We will cover the following points. Create a short game with the variable types int, bool and string in a Windows Forms C# program. The game generates a random number between 1 and 100, and the player has to guess the number. The game gives the player hints after each guess, telling them if their guess is too high, too low, or if they guess the correct number. The player has 10 chances to guess the number correctly. And now enjoy the practical part of this video. Hey everyone! Welcome to this video tutorial learning C# using Windows Forms. In this tutorial, we'll be covering the basics of C#. On the next pages I give you some more info regarding what are conditions, 3 types of conditions, if, else if, and else statements. Switch is a useful alternative for a long series of if-else statements. What are conditions? Conditions in C# are an essential part of programming and are used to control the flow of code based on certain criteria. They allow you to execute specific code blocks when a condition is met, and to handle different situations and scenarios in your program. In other words, conditions are used to make decisions in your program. Conditional logical operators. These operators are used to combine conditions and create more complex expressions. The operators are and or and not. Comparison operators. These operators are used to compare two values and return a Boolean value, true or false. The operators are equal to, not equal to, less than, greater than, less than or equal to and greater than or equal to. By using these different types of conditions, you can make your code more expressive, concise, and easier to understand. Conditions are a powerful tool for any programmer and can be used in a wide range of applications and scenarios. 3 types of conditions: if, and else statements. If statement, this is the most basic type of condition in C#. It checks if a specific condition is true and performs a certain action if it is. For example, if the user clicks a button, the program will perform a certain action. Else if statement. This statement is used to check for multiple conditions. If the first condition is not true, it will move on to the next condition until it finds a true condition to execute. Else statement. This statement is used as a catch-all condition. If none of the conditions are true, the program will execute the code inside the else statement. Now that we've discussed the different types of conditions, let's take a look at some example code to help illustrate how they work. If none of the conditions are true, the program will execute the code inside the else statement. Switch is a useful alternative for a long series of if-else statements. There are several benefits to using switch instead of several if-else conditions in C#. Readability. Switch statements can often be easier to read and understand than a series of if-else statements, especially when there are many possible cases. This is because switch statements are designed specifically for this purpose and provide a clear and concise syntax. Performance. Switch statements can be faster than a series of if-else statements in some cases. This is because the C# compiler can optimize the switch statement to use a jump table or hash table, which can result in faster lookup times than a series of linearly evaluated if-else statements. Maintainability. Switch statements can be easier to maintain than a series of if-else statements, especially when changes need to be made to the code. This is because changes can be made in one place, rather than needing to update multiple if-else statements throughout the code. In this example, we have a variable called actual day which is set to 1. We then use a switch statement to check the value of it and execute the corresponding case. In this case, since actual day is equal to 1, the code will execute the case 1 block, which will be Thursday. The break statement is used to exit the switch statement once the corresponding case has been executed. If actual day was set to a value that didn't match any of the cases, the default block would be executed, which in this case will be weekend. Now let's start with the video. Learn C# using Windows Forms, conditions. We will cover the following points. Example for if and else condition. Example for switch condition. And now enjoy the practical part of this video. Hey everyone. Welcome to this video tutorial learning C# using Windows Forms. In this tutorial, we'll be covering the basics of C#. On the next pages I give you some more info regarding what are loops, for and for each loops, while and do while loops, using loops in Windows Forms. What are loops? Loops are a fundamental programming concept that allow you to execute a block of code repeatedly. They are used to simplify repetitive tasks, and to iterate over collections of data. There are several types of loops in C#, including for loops, while loops, do while loops, and for each loops. Each type of loop has its own syntax and use cases. When using loops, it's important to avoid infinite loops, which occur when the loop condition is never met or when the loop never exits. This can cause your program to hang or crash, and can be difficult to debug. In addition to the loop itself, you may need to use other programming constructs inside the loop, such as if statements, switch statements, and break and continue statements. These can be used to control the flow of the loop or to modify the behavior of the loop based on certain conditions. Loops are often used in combination with arrays, lists, and other data structures to iterate over their contents. This can be useful for processing data or performing calculations on large sets of data. When designing loops, it's important to consider the efficiency and performance of the loop, especially if you're working with large data sets. In some cases, it may be possible to optimize the loop by using other techniques, such as parallel processing or caching. Finally, loops are a powerful tool in any programmer's toolkit, and it's important to master their use to become an effective programmer. By understanding the different types of loops and how to use them, you can write more efficient, effective code and tackle more complex programming challenges. For and for each loops. For loop. The for loop is used to repeat a block of code a fixed number of times. It is ideal when you know the exact number of times you want the loop to run. The syntax of the for loop is as follows. In the initializer, you can declare and initialize a loop counter variable. In the condition, you can specify the condition that must be met for the loop to continue. In the iterator, you can specify how the loop counter variable is incremented or decremented on each iteration. For each loop. The for each loop is used to iterate over elements in a collection. It is helpful when you want to iterate over all elements in a collection without using an index. The syntax of the for each loop is as follows. In this syntax, item is a variable that represents the current element in the collection. And collection is the collection being iterated. While and do while loops. While loop. The while loop is used to repeat a block of code as long as a certain condition is met. It is helpful when you do not know the exact number of times the loop needs to run. The syntax of the while loop is as follows. Do while loop. The do while loop is similar to the while loop, but it always executes the loop at least once before checking the condition. The syntax of the do while loop is as follows. Using loops in Windows Forms. Now, let's see how we can use loops in Windows Forms applications. Suppose we have a list of items that we want to display in a list box control. We can use a loop to iterate over the list and add each item to the list box. The code would look like this. We can also use a loop to iterate over the controls in a form and perform certain actions on them. For example, we can disable all the buttons in a form using a loop. The code would look like this. In conclusion, loops are an essential part of programming and can be used in a variety of ways. In Windows Forms applications, loops can be used to iterate over lists and controls and perform various actions on them. Now let's start with the video. Learn C# using Windows Forms, loops. We will cover the following points. Example of for and for each loops. Example of while and do while loops. And now enjoy the practical part of this video. Hey everyone! Welcome to this video tutorial learning C# using Windows Forms. In this tutorial, we'll be covering the basics of C#. On the next pages I give you some more info regarding what is an array, some differences between lists and arrays. What is an array? In C#, an array is a collection of elements of the same data type, stored in contiguous memory locations. Arrays can be used to store and manipulate data in a program. When you create an array in C#, you must specify the data type of the elements in the array and the size of the array. Once an array is created, its size cannot be changed, and you can access its elements using an index, which is an integer value that represents the position of the element in the array. In C#, there are several different types of arrays, each with its own syntax and use case. In general, single-dimensional and multi-dimensional arrays are the most common types of arrays in C#. However, the other types of arrays can be useful in certain situations, such as when you need to work with data that has a hierarchical structure or when you need to represent data with varying row lengths. Single-dimensional arrays. These are the most basic type of array in C#. They are used to store a collection of elements of the same data type in a single row or column. Here's an example of how to declare and initialize a single-dimensional array. Multi-dimensional arrays. These are used to store elements in a table-like format with two or more dimensions. Multi-dimensional arrays can have two or more indexes to access individual elements. Here's an example of how to declare and initialize a multi-dimensional array. Some differences between lists and arrays. In C#, there are several differences between lists and arrays. Here are a few key differences. Size. Arrays have a fixed size, which is determined when the array is created. Once the array is created, you cannot change its size. In contrast, lists can grow or shrink dynamically as needed. Accessing of the elements. In an array, you access elements by their index. For example, myArray0 would retrieve the first element of the array. In a list, you can access elements by their index, just like in an array, myList0, but you can also use other methods, such as myListFirst or myListLast, to retrieve the first or last element of the list. Adding and removing elements. Adding or removing elements from an array requires creating a new array with the desired size and copying the elements from the old array to the new one. In contrast, adding or removing elements from a list is a simple matter of calling the add or remove method. Type safety. Arrays are type safe, which means that you can only store elements of the same type in the array. Lists are also type safe, but they can store elements of different types if you use a generic list less than t, and specify the type of the elements. Memory allocation. Arrays are allocated on the stack or the heap, depending on their size. In contrast, lists are always allocated on the heap. Overall, lists are more flexible than arrays because they can grow or shrink dynamically and have additional methods for accessing and manipulating their elements. However, arrays have a fixed size, which can be an advantage in some cases, and they are generally faster and more memory efficient than lists. Now let's start with the video. Learn C# using Windows Forms, arrays. We will cover the following points. Example of single-dimensional arrays. Example of multi-dimensional arrays. And now enjoy the practical part of this video. Hey everyone! Welcome to this video tutorial learning C# using Windows Forms. In this tutorial, we'll be covering the basics of C#. On the next pages I give you some more info regarding what are methods, some examples for useful methods in Windows Forms, why methods, including some examples. What are methods? In C# Windows Forms, a method is a block of code that performs a specific action. Methods can be defined in a class or in the code behind file for a form or control, and can be called from other methods or event handlers in the same class or form. Methods can take input parameters, which are values passed into the method when it is called, and can also return a value to the calling code. The return type of a method is specified in the method signature and can be any valid C# data type, including void if the method doesn't return a value. Methods are an important part of writing applications in C# Windows Forms, as they allow you to organize your code into reusable blocks of functionality. By breaking down your code into methods, you can improve the readability and maintainability of your code, as well as make it easier to test and debug. Common examples of methods in C# Windows Forms include event handlers for user interface events, such as button clicks or menu selections, as well as methods for performing data validation, processing user input, or updating the user interface based on changes in application state. Overall, methods are a key building block of C# Windows Forms programming and an essential tool for creating robust, maintainable, and user-friendly applications. These are just a few examples of the many useful methods available in C# Windows Forms. When writing your own methods, it's important to think about the functionality you want to provide and how best to organize your code to achieve that functionality. Why methods? Creating your own methods in C# can provide several benefits in your code. Code reusability. By creating your own methods, you can reuse the same code in multiple parts of your application. This can save you time and effort in writing and maintaining code. Encapsulation. Methods allow you to encapsulate a set of operations into a single unit. This can make your code more organized, easier to read, and easier to maintain. Abstraction. Methods can help to abstract away the details of how a particular operation is performed. This can make your code more modular and easier to change in the future. Improved readability. By breaking your code down into smaller, more manageable pieces, you can improve the overall readability of your code. This can make it easier for other developers to understand and modify your code. Testing. Methods can make it easier to write and run automated tests on your code. By isolating individual units of code, you can test them independently and ensure that they are working as expected. Overall, creating your own methods can make your code more modular, reusable, and easier to maintain. It can also help to improve the readability and testability of your code. Now let's start with the video. Learn C# using Windows Forms. Methods. We will cover the following points. Create some different methods to get familiar with the syntax. And now enjoy the practical part of this video. Hey everyone! Welcome to this video tutorial learning C# using Windows Forms. In this tutorial, we'll be covering the basics of C#. On the next pages I give you some more info regarding what are classes and what are the benefits. Creating a class in C# with properties and methods. My top 5 important classes in C# from the .NET Framework. What are classes? Classes are a fundamental building block of object-oriented programming, OOP, in C#. They provide a way to organize code into reusable, modular units. A class is essentially a blueprint that defines the structure and behavior of objects that belong to that class. An object is an instance of a class that has its own set of data and behavior. Classes in C# can be thought of as a template or a mold that is used to create objects. When you create a new object from a class, you are creating a new instance of that class. Each instance has its own set of properties and methods that can be accessed and modified independently of other instances. One of the key benefits of using classes in C# is that they provide a way to encapsulate data and functionality. This means that you can define how data should be stored and manipulated within a class, and then use that class in different parts of your program without having to worry about the underlying implementation details. This can help to reduce complexity and make your code more modular and easier to maintain. In C#, everything is an object, including primitive types like integers and strings. Objects have properties and methods that define their behavior and allow them to interact with other objects. Classes provide a way to define these properties and methods in a structured way. In summary, classes are a fundamental building block of object-oriented programming in C#. They provide a way to define the structure and behavior of objects, encapsulate data and functionality, and make your code more modular and reusable. Creating a class in C# with properties and methods. In this example, we've created a class called person with 2 properties, name and age. We've also defined 2 methods, say hello, which prints a message to the console with the person's name and age, and calculate birth year, which calculates the person's birth year based on their current age. To use this class in your code, you can create an instance of the class and set the values of its properties. So it's possible to create many different persons by create new instances of the person class. My top 5 important classes in C# from the .NET Framework. This is the base class for all classes in the .NET Framework, and provides the basic functionality for all .NET objects. This class is used for working with strings and provides a wide range of string manipulation methods. This is a generic collection class that allows you to store and manipulate a list of items of a specified type. This class provides methods for working with files, including reading from and writing to files. This class is the base class for all exceptions in the .NET Framework, and provides a standard way to handle errors and exceptions in C# applications. These classes are foundational and widely used in many C# applications, and provide essential functionality that is needed to build robust and scalable applications. Now let's start with the video. Learn C# using Windows Forms, classes. We will cover the following points. Create a class to represent a person. Create a student subclass of the person. Create a login system class with a private field. And now enjoy the practical part of this video. Hey everyone. Welcome to this video tutorial learning C# using Windows Forms. Congratulations and enjoy the last video in this series. In the following project we want to use the knowledge from the last 8 videos about the basics of C# and create a complete tool. What we have learned. In this tutorial we learned many stuff regarding C#. We also created several different projects and small games that covers different topics. With this you have now a good overview about the language and the needed tool. I hope that was a good start for you into the world of programming. What we will create with our new knowledge. We will create a calculator with some basic functions. For this we create our own calculation helper class. We use also a NuGet package for a nicer look and create our own event handler for the button controls. Now let's start with the last video from this tutorial. Learn C# using Windows Forms, final exam. We will create a simple calculator with our own event handlers and calculation class. We also use a better look using a NuGet package. And now enjoy the practical part of this video.